The Troll by Ditebogo Maenge, Ngami Junior Secondary School, Ngami District. Narrated by Katlo Pearl Kwetsi, Maung Senior Secondary School, Maung.
I remember coming home from school last week, arriving to the usual scene. Her screaming, her wailing, her begging, his stamping fists, and his heavy kicks. He was used to it. It made him feel manly. Punch, kick, punch, kick. I watched in terror. There was nothing I could do, but only to close my eyes and wait for him to stop hitting her. How long was I to cry and hide as he hit her? I wondered inwardly, afraid to make any noise lest he switched to me. My mom married Bongo last year after my dad died. Tradition and rules set by a cruel society dictated that she do that. Women are passed along from one man to another like a piece of clothing. Why my mother had consented to the marriage, I really don't know. How could she do that? He wasn't even handsome. Bongo had a giant's body with huge hands, long legs, and a monstrous head. He was even old enough to be her father. To make matters worse, he had a big smelly mole on his rather huge and deformed nose. A complete troll. That was what he was, nothing else. Just one look at him made me feel pity and anger for my mom. I kept asking myself what had made her marry such an ugly, smelly, and hideous man. My mother was a beautiful woman, petite, with marble brown eyes and a fair complexion. Wherever she went, eyes followed, admiring her natural beauty. She jokingly used to say she was the village belle. The attention people gave her made Bongo even more jealous and more aggressive towards my mother. He always beat her to cure her of her flirting ways, whatever that meant. I hated those words coming from his foul mouth whenever he assaulted Mom. Little by little she became his servant, his robot. He used the beatings to program her to do everything and anything for him. She cooked for him, fed him, and washed his clothes. Everything had to be done to his liking or there would be hell to pay, with a whip or a slap, a kick or a punch. She learned to live with it. I guess it was for the sake of the four walls. The roof over our heads, the food, and the money for my school fees. I'm pretty sure she would have continued doing so even if it meant her death. The regular beatings had sucked the life out of her. My mother's once beautiful face was gone. There were deep hollows where there were once dimpled cheeks. Her face carried a look of fear and sadness. She even lost her mind sometimes and often had a few episodes of hallucinations because of the regular blows her skull and brain sustained. She practically lived to serve the man. No, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. Food is ready, sir. Can I sleep, sir? Were the daily phrases she spoke when addressing him. Almost like mantras recited by a faith-blinded monk. Hearing my mom talk like a pre-recorded tape and seeing the spacious gap between his yellow teeth as he smiled in enjoyment to the replies irritated me. It built a bitter hatred in me, a terrible disgust for the man which built up in the core of my being like residues of a poisonous chemical. Sooner or later, I had to spit out the venom or it would eat me up. Last night he came home high on Nyaupe. He was hallucinating, and in his crooked mind, he said he had seen my mother dancing at the shebeen with some man. Nyaupe is a synonym for marijuana, a name commonly used in our neighborhood. Those who know it say it's not child's play, that it hits one pretty badly. His horrible stench filled the room. It was a result of not bathing for several days. That was how disgusting he was. The look in his eyes made my blood cold and I sensed a brutal beating on the way. He quickly stumbled, reached for my mom, and clenched her hair into his hands. pulling her towards the kitchen. He was going to get his whip. I knew it. I jumped on him and tried to stop him, but it was a pathetic attempt which resulted with me being thrown against the kitchen counter. Against the big troll, I was only a mouse, small and vulnerable. When he let go of her hair, strands of it remained in his hands and blood oozed from her scalp. He took out his whip and started the torture. He kept calling her names, kicking her, punching her. He went on again and again, letting out his cruel, devilish laughs in between. I looked at her, and she was completely swollen, bleeding, and red from the whip. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to stop him, somehow, with something, anything. I pulled the drawer that contained the still new long knives that were their wedding presents. I snatched 2 out, weapons gleaming under the kitchen fluorescent. I must have looked like a samurai or a ninja. The knife in my left hand went into his gut as if it were cheese. He groaned in pain, eyes bulging in surprise. My right hand drove the other knife through his chest. No rib came in the way of the long, sharp stainless steel blade. My mom screamed and fainted at the sight of me stabbing him. I couldn't let him do that again. Never. He fell to the floor, supine, gaggling for breath. His legs twitched once, twice, and he lay still. It was finally over. This monster, the troll's reign of terror, was finally over. I watched him bleed to death before I called the police. He had to die. He deserved it. I did this for you, Mom. I kept saying over and over again as I waited for the police to arrive.
Take-home message. Traditional practices that contravene children's and women's rights need to be reviewed. Violence in the home must be reported to the police for investigation and corrective action. Silence about violence is violence. Find your voice and speak out against the violence.